start your implementations. So that's the first thing. So once you identify your hardware and procure the appliance from a vendor, any of these vendors listed out there, then the next thing is, now it's like you bought a new PC. Now you have a new PC with you. Now what you want to do? Say you want to install MS Office on that. So you want to install any kind of software there. First and foremost thing you need to do on that particular PC is you need to install an operating system. Without operating system, you cannot think about installing any softwares. Similarly, here on these appliances, you need to install an operating system. Then only you'll be able to install your database server. So coming to HANA database server installation, remember that SAP is supporting only one operating system. You can install HANA database server only on Linux. Only on Linux. No other operating systems are supported. Remember this. Don't generalize saying that HANA runs on Linux. Be specific. Now you are more of a technical guy. You're an administrator. You should speak in the terms of components. Don't generalize saying HANA. You better say HANA database server runs only on Linux. Because there are other components of HANA. It's not just about database server. So HANA database server runs on Linux operating system. Initially, SAP supported only SUSE Linux. SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. And then later on from SPS 9, 1.0 SPS 9 onwards, they started supporting even Red Hat Enterprise Linux also. So either SUSE or Red Hat now. Okay, so people will have a doubt, why only Linux? Yes, SAP is having their own reasons. They've chosen this for some selected reasons. These are more lightweight operating systems, more secured ones, easy to maintain, and open sources. A lot of advantages we have with these operating systems. That's why they preferred using this Linux. Initially only SUSE Linux, but later on, many of the customers, they have already this Red Hat they are using there, so they started supporting Red Hat also. And another thing, people will have a doubt like which version of the Linux. That you don't worry. Depending on the version of your database, the version of Linux will be. It's not a fixed one. You can't follow the same always. Like suppose if I want to run HANA 1.0 SPS 12, I need to have, if it is SUSE Linux, SLES 11.4. If I want to install 2.0 SPS 00, it doesn't run on 11.4. Compulsory, I need to have 12.2. So minimum required like that. So they'll give you clearly, if you go to something called PAM, Product Availability Matrix, they'll clearly give you which version of that operating system is suitable. So that version you need to install. And then you'll be able to install your HANA database server, which doesn't take much time. Hardly it's a matter of 15 minutes activity installing the database server. So which you'll be learning practically, and you'll also do it practically later on. So now the main component is ready. You have your appliance, Linux is installed, database server is installed. Now in your company, there is a HANA database server running. Fine, database server is ready now. Now, once your database server is running in a company, there are many people who want to work with this database server. When I say many people, so they can be administrators, they can be technical people like modeling consultants, they may be developers. So there are many people who want to work with this database server. So they want to perform different activities depending on their roles and responsibilities. You can't expect all these people working on the server directly. In fact, we don't allow them to work on the servers directly. So it's obvious that all these people will be working from client workstations, including administrators. I don't allow every administrator to work on the server directly. I don't allow them to work on that Linux machine directly, except maybe a super admin. So when you people want to work from a client workstation, maybe a administrator, maybe a modeling consultant, maybe a development consultant, whoever it is. So when they want to work from a client workstation, what basically they need is they need an interface. They need an interface to perform their activities. So generally, when you are speaking about interfaces, basically there are two types of interfaces we use. One is CLIs, command line interfaces, where we just enter some commands, type commands. You go to DOS prompt and you type some commands like that. Or otherwise, another option you have graphical user interfaces. Using the graphical screens, you perform your activities. Anyhow, you feel more comfortable working with graphical interfaces. So what SAP has done is, when these people want to perform different activities from the client workstation, SAP is providing a graphical tool for you. And that graphical tool SAP is offering to you is HANA Studio. It's a simple graphical tool which you can install in the client workstation. And using this graphical tool HANA Studio, one single tool, you'll be able to perform multiple activities. So what are those multiple activities you can perform? Using this Studio tool, you can perform admin activities. Admin activities means you can perform anything like backup, recoveries, security maintenance, like user creation, role creation, monitoring, all these things you can do from here. And not only administration, modeling consultants, they can perform the data modeling, they can build data models, which they can use for analysis. And the development consultants, even they can perform the development activities, like they can develop some applications if needed, like mobile applications, web applications they can develop using the same tool. So one single tool, you're able to perform multiple activities. So that's the advantage we have with the HANA Studio. So this HANA Studio, you're going to install it in the client workstations. So when you say you want to install HANA Studio in the client workstations, now the question here is, what is that operating system you can expect on the client workstations? Client workstations, you can't expect Linux operating system. Client workstations, mostly it will be Windows. So that's why I remember when it comes to HANA Studio, when that software is given to you, HANA Studio software, SAP is providing this HANA Studio software for different operating systems. They're providing HANA Studio for Windows. You have 32-bit, 64-bit available. You have HANA Studio available for Linux, and HANA Studio is available for Mac OS also. So that's where you should not get confused. If you see, this is my Windows machine. I have HANA Studio here. This is my HANA Studio. So don't get confused. So Studio is running on Windows, but whereas my database is running on Linux operating system only. You can see that this database is running on SUSE Linux. 12.3 I'm using that. So no confusions there. That's why I told you, don't generalize saying that HANA runs on Windows, HANA runs on Linux. No. HANA database server runs only on Linux. Whereas when it comes to Studio, Studio you can install on Windows, Linux or Mac OS. It's a simple graphical tool, a small tool. And there is an important story behind this HANA Studio tool. I'll come to that. I'll explain you that, a useful story behind this HANA Studio. We'll come back to that. Okay, now you have database server installed on the standard appliance on the Linux machine, and now you have HANA Studio installed, say example on this Windows machine. Now, whenever these people, all these technical people want to perform any activity, having studio, okay, studio is there. But when they want to do administration, modeling, development, anything, first of all, they need to connect to the server. They need to connect to the database server. Without connection to the database server, nothing can be done. So when you're speaking about connecting to the database server, database connectivity, you might have done this database connectivities like not only HANA, any database you take, Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, any database connectivity you want to do, you need some drivers. You might have heard about some drivers like ODBC drivers, JDBC drivers, ODBO. So basically, we need database connectivity drivers. HANA is nothing different. HANA is also database. So obviously, we need drivers to connect to the HANA database. So what SAP has done is SAP is provided all the drivers instead of giving drivers separately. All the drivers, set of all the drivers combining together, they provided a small software called HANA Client. Very simple software. So in this HANA Client software, you'll find all the drivers required to communicate with your HANA database. So drivers like your JDBC, your ODBC, all these drivers are provided. Without these drivers, no way you can connect to the database. So in the client workstation, you install the HANA Studio, but not only HANA Studio, you also install the HANA Client. Observe here, I'm just showing examples. This all you'll be learning later on. If you look at these drivers, general drivers, Oracle, all those drivers you have there, but you also find something called HANA Database ODBC driver. In fact, that is allowing you to connect to your database. Without the driver, there is no way you can connect to the database. So the drivers are so important for you. So that HANA client is a small software consisting of all the drivers required to communicate with your HANA database. So you'll install HANA client in your workstation along with the studio. And then from the studio, like this, you establish a connection to the HANA database. Once you connect to the HANA database, perform your different activities. Whatever it is, maybe monitoring, maybe backup, maybe recovery, securities, anything you can take care of. And modeling consultant, they can perform data modeling and all that. See how simple is this working environment to understand. This is so important for you to first of all visualize all these things, how the system setups will be done in the companies. In the coming sessions, you are going to learn something about system landscapes. So you need to have a good understanding of the landscapes. You need to understand, first of all, the components. If you know the components, you will understand the landscapes more easily. Even though your job is only a database administrator, HANA database administrator, knowing about the landscape will help you out to identify the problems and troubleshoot the problems more effectively. Because you should know, okay, in this system setup, if I have this problem might have maybe initiated from some other place, from some other application. We don't know that. So if you know the complete system setup, you'll have a good overall understanding of that. It becomes easy for you to work in that environment. So that always you need to look at. It's not just blindly working there. Get understanding of your system setups. So this will be whatever we are discussing now. All this will be helpful for you to understand those system setups later on. So these are the main things for you. A lot more components we are going to discuss in tomorrow and after tomorrow session also. We'll come to that later on. And there are some browser-based utilities also SAP is providing to you. I can access those browser-based tools. Like example, there is something called HANA Cockpit. HANA Cockpit, if I want access in the client workstation, I don't need to install anything. Just I'll open a browser, I'll enter a URL, I can start accessing the HANA Cockpit. It's such a simple thing. I don't need to install anything. But these are the major things for you: the HANA database server, HANA Studio, HANA client, which we can also call them as core software components, without which there's no HANA implementation at all. Okay, so now coming back to that HANA Studio, as I told you, there is a brief story behind that. Try to understand. This is really helpful for you for an administrator. Actually, SAP did not develop this HANA Studio from the scratch. Observe what happens now. I'm just opening HANA Studio. Actually, I'm opening HANA Studio, but what is this title it's giving here? Observe, it's saying Eclipse Launcher. So this is what is an important point which you need to understand as an administrator. So the point what you need to know here is this HANA Studio is not developed by SAP from the scratch. What they did is they taken a ready-made existing platform called Eclipse. You might have heard about Eclipse, a popular one. It's a Java IDE tool. Most of the people might have heard about this. It's open source. Eclipse.org, there is a website, you can go and check there. So that is a Java IDE tool. What they did, they've taken that Java IDE tool and they simply added some add-on, additional software on top of that Eclipse, and that they released it as HANA Studio. That's why when I'm opening this HANA Studio, showing that Eclipse launcher there. So in simple terminology, technically speaking, HANA Studio is nothing but Eclipse with an add-on, additional software. Why I'm saying this is important for you to understand is, see, this is not first time SAP is using Eclipse. SAP started using Eclipse way back. If you know a brief history about SAP, SAP initially relied completely on ABAP programming for their application development. SAP's own programming language called ABAP, Advanced Business Application Programming. So they completely relied on ABAP programming for their application development initially. But early 2000, late 90s, early 2000, when there is a huge demand for mobile-based applications and web-based applications, so they found a lot of difficulties and limitations in ABAP programming. So after realizing that, SAP started using Java for their application development. They started doing it. So that's the reason why in 2004 SAP came up with the NetWeaver platform. So where they have some applications developed using ABAP and some of the application developed using Java. So once SAP started developing their applications using Java, they want to have a proper IDE tool. Java is open source, anyone can use. What SAP thought, why can't we use an open source IDE tool? So at that time itself, Eclipse was popular. They started using Eclipse. So in 2004, when SAP came up with NetWeaver first time, they've introduced a tool called NetWeaver Developer Studio, NWDS. That MWDS was based on Eclipse only. What they did, they taken Eclipse and they added some software and they given some provisions to develop that enterprise portal applications, knowledge management, mobile infrastructure applications and all that. So there's nothing new for them. They started using Eclipse way back. So what they did now also they're taken Eclipse and they added some software and they're given it as a HANA Studio where they're allowing you to perform HANA administration, HANA modeling, HANA development, all these things. So why is it so important for you to know as an administrator is, suppose tomorrow you started working in a company. So what that customer has asked you is, hey, our ABAP developers want to do ABAP development in Eclipse. Or they may say that I want to do ABAP development from HANA Studio. And they'll ask you to set up the working environment. What you are going to do? So generally, ABAP developers, what they do, ABAP developers, if they want to do any ABAP developments, they go to SAP GUI like this. They log into their SAP application. And after logging into SAP application, they use something called ABAP Development Workbench and they do the developments from there. That's a old concept. But now suppose the customer is opting for S4 HANA implementation. You know S4 HANA, there's a new ERP, business suite solution, 4 generation one, but only with HANA database. Suppose there is an ABAP consultant who has to work for this S4 HANA implementation. Understand this. This ABAP consultant worked earlier for ERP implementation, SAP ERP. He worked for that implementation. But earlier, when he is working as an ABAP consultant, he never knows what is the underlying databases. That ERP application may be running with Oracle or SQL Server or DB2. The way he is writing ABAP programming is same because that's completely independent of database. But now the same ERP, when it's implemented with HANA database, now the programming code is not changed, but some new techniques SAP has introduced. What SAP has done, they optimized ABAP programming for HANA database. Part of that optimization techniques, what he has to do is this ABAP developer need to write some programming code at the database level as well as some programming code at the application level. Application level programming code, he can go to ABAP development workbench and he can do it. But database level programming, you need to use HANA Studio and you need to do it. So here you need to use two different development environments. Obviously, in this process, he'll be wasting a lot of time because you need to use two different tools and perform activities. Now that's why what SAP has done is to simplify this working environment. In Eclipse itself, they started providing the web development facilities also in Eclipse itself, so that this ABAP developer doesn't need to use two different working environments. So staying in Eclipse, he can write the ABAP program. He can also write the database level programming, that's called SQL scripting. Observe here on the right top corner, here we have BW modelings and ABAP also is there here. So what is that ABAP? How do you get that ABAP option? It's basically Eclipse. As I told you, HANA Studio itself is an add-on. So you get some more additional software and install it, you'll get ABAP development facility. You'll get one more additional software called BW modeling, install, you'll get BW modeling. So meaning of that is all the activities you can perform based on Eclipse only. As and when situation demands, just get the additional software and install it. Don't worry how they do it. I'll show you. Practically we'll be doing it. But understand the concept behind this. So the future of SAP development is totally Eclipse, Eclipse based development environment, what we call it as. So as an administrator, the basic point you need to understand there is, you need to understand that ABAP developments, if you want to perform in Eclipse, you need to know that that's just a simple add-on. You just get additional software, install it. So that very simple point, if you understand, that's it. You're done. You don't need to worry anything. You just download the ABAP development tools given by SAP. Otherwise, online also directly you can update your software. There is a simple URL portal given. You can just go there and download and install it. Over. The basic logic you need to know there. So that you will be able to understand only when you know that the basic platform you have here is Eclipse. So that's a small story behind this. It's really important for you. So never get confused with these things. These are all very, very basic bones. Because people are confused. Like suddenly, if they say ABAP development, confused what to install, where to install, and all that. It's nothing. It's actually just a matter of 5 minutes task for an administrator if they know that basic logic. So SAP is projecting this a lot. The future is we don't use all these complicated working environments. We use only Eclipse environment to perform all the activities, which includes your HANA related activities like development, modeling, administration. BW modeling you can do here. ABAP developments you can do here. Process integration designs you can do from here. All these facilities are providing you with simple add-on additional softwares. So they'll give you that facility for you to install whatever the additional softwares needed from here. The basic simple URL will be given to you. You just go to that URL, they'll give the entire list to you. That is tools.hana.ondemand.com. If you go there, the entire list comes. You can select and install it over. See how simple is that? Provided you know that basic logic behind that. That's why I told you. These are all, even though look so simple, basic points, but they are very, very crucial for you for your working environment. People won't focus on these things. There's no point in directly jumping and starting installations on first day itself when you don't know all these points. But tomorrow when you install, you know, okay, I'm installing database server will be there. I'm installing Studio in the client. There are some people, even today, there are some people who claims that my database server, my HANA database server is running on Windows. Because their assumption is they see Studio running on Windows and they'll see already database server connected there. Their assumption is my database is running on Windows. There are kind of people like that. That's why that clear separations we need to have. A clear understanding of each and every software component is very, very important for you. That's why we are discussing these things. And there are many optional software components given by SAP. I'll explain you those components and significance of those components. The customers, they may use or may not use, don't worry. But we should know. That will be really helpful for you. Because see, you can't think about working always as a low level technical guy. At some point, you need to come to a stage where you can start suggesting the customers about some solutions. And that you'll gain knowledge only when you start exploring all other options you have, additional components given by SAP. Irrespective of whether they use it or not, doesn't matter. One customer may use, or one customer may not use. That's why I told you it's a big concept which we are going to discuss for the next two sessions also.